Hello,
Hi.
hello, human and AI bots.
Hello,
How are you guys
human friend.
doing? We are back, Sarah Beth. Can you
Yeah, we
believe it?
haven't done this in a while. Doesn't it feel like it's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
while?
Yeah, it's been a while since we reconvened. I think it was actually our Share My Lesson virtual conference when,
Oh yeah. I hope everyone
yeah,
checked
yeah,
that out. Amazing.
I know. Well,
I
it's been
did say
a,
so myself. Like we were amazing.
we were,
Probably.
we were
We were
awesome.
so good. We were so
We were
good. Yeah.
awesome. Oh, and I see some emojis are coming.
Oh yeah,
So
we love
thank you.
emojis.
Thank you to everybody who's joining us. So I am Kelly Booz. I'm the director of our AFT's Share My Lesson website and also the co-founder Brain with Sarah Beth for our AI Educator Brain series. And my friend, Sarah Beth.
Hello, we are here. I'm about to I'm a high school teacher by day, webinar co-host by night, among other things. And for me, it's AP season. I don't know if any teachers are out there experiencing that. Just like my AP exams, APUSH, it's Friday. AI has been a very helpful tool, which I would love to share with you all about that. And the days are getting longer. We're getting closer to summer break.
Oh, it's coming. It's around the corner. It's around the corner. So thank you for everybody who's joining us this evening. I'm going to kind of give a quick overview and ask that you guys use that group chat widget. If you haven't done so already, to introduce yourself, let us know where you're joining us from. And I'm going to highlight that right now on your screen. And let us know if you've joined us for an AI webinar, AI Educator Brain webinar before. I'm going to give a quick overview of our agenda, and then we're going to get right into this. So here is I'm going to try to do the 30-second elevator spiel, Sarah Beth. So
Yeah.
the two of us created this series a little over a year ago after having a brainstorm when we were attending a conference in Texas, and decided that, gosh, we really need to tackle AI and education and, learn along with you. There's been a lot of times where we're doing some things live using AI and we're like, whoa, that is kind of crazy, or discovering cool new tips and tricks to use it. So one of the most requested webinars that we've had was using AI with special education and unlocking the various possibilities using generative AI. So I'm going to, in a second, ask our new human guest to join us. But before, here's the agenda. So we're gonna introduce our human guests in just a second. But we always start at the very beginning with a couple fun things. You'll see that we have a lot of fun energy, like we're going. We love it when you use those little emojis, emoticons, so we can see that something might be resonating. You're welcome to give us a thumbs down. We'll just cry a little bit to ourselves, or a heart, or a thumbs up, or laughter. But we really want this to be engaging with you, so be sure that you're using all of that. We will be talking about, what's news in AI today, and I have some good ones. And then, sharing some different AI tools or new tricks that we've been, discovering. Because when we first started this, the models were way different than they are now, and they're getting more and more sophisticated as we go. So, Sarah, do you have anything to add to all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the key thing here is that, like, even though we've been doing this for a while, I feel like I'm always learning something new about AI, always finding new ways to incorporate into my practice, my daily practices. And I'm so excited that we created this. We had our 1-year anniversary of AI Educator Brain in March, and it's amazing to see even just how much like ChatGPT has grown with us. I'm feeling nostalgic for the days when ChatGPT thought Mike Pence was running to be vice president in August. It's come a long way. It's come a long way. It's come a long way. It's taught me. It's been what a relationship we've had.
Oh my gosh. It has come a long way. Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of want to go back to some of those old prompts and see what the output would be now. If you remember the creepy penguin from back.
Oh my God, the creepy penguin.
Yeah.
Sorry for everyone that. But I think it's just exciting. We're gonna look back and everyone in this chat as well, we're all going to look back and say, oh my God, remember when AI was like this? And remember when it was so new to us? It's going to make me, it reminds me of, I remember, I'm going to age myself for a second. You ready, everyone? Don't do math. But I was in college. It was senior in college. And I wanted to look something up on what we now call the internet. But this was
Wide
new.
Web. It's the World Wide Web.
And I remember I was
WWW.
and I didn't know how to call up the screen to look it up. So I found one of my friends who was an engineering major, because I thought he could help. No one knew. I was like, how do you get that? It wasn't even Google. How do you get that search thing, in the library? And that makes me laugh now, but that's where I even think maybe our experts will join us. I feel like we're still there where it's like so new. So many people aren't even using it yet. So that's why I'm really happy to have everyone in this webinar tonight, because that means that you are, doing this work with us and learning about it, so we can also teach our students and help apply it to the classroom.
Yes. All right. So without further ado, we have humans beyond our
I love how you have to say it's humans.
Yeah, because we started with our little chatbot. So I am going to ask Joe and Mike to join us in the there we go, the boxes. So we have Joe Brazier, hopefully I pronounced your last name right, Director of Education and Azure Strategy with Microsoft Education. Did I totally butcher that? Probably. There's probably an AI for that will help me with my, pronunciation.
Yeah.
And pronunciation. And then Mike Harris, Vice President of United Teachers of Wichita, one of our AFT leaders. So Joe and Mike, I'm going to give you guys you will be taking the stage for almost all of this, but how about you guys get your 30-second elevator pitch?
Elevator pitch. Love it. My name is Joe Brazier, a lot like Frazier, but just with a B. So it's okay. I've been called Brazier for many times over the years. But yeah, I'm a former special educator, spent probably a decade and a half-ish in education. I've been at Microsoft for about 7 years. And I currently lead our Azure strategy, which that's just our cloud computing options. And really what it comes down to, anybody who cares, is how do we make the data that we collect help us make data-driven decisions and interventions for our students. And so that's my focus, is helping our sellers around the world be able to engage with educators and do that. And then I do a lot of stuff around special education, because there's not a lot of people with my background within Microsoft to help support this and what we're doing. And so I'm excited for this this evening, this morning, this afternoon, to engage you in generative AI focused on special educator questions, concerns, and scenarios. So looking forward to it.
Great. Mike, you get your 30 seconds.
My name's
it may
Mike
have been
Harris.
longer than 30 seconds, but we'll forgive you, Joe.
Hi, my name's Mike Harris. I'll keep mine under 30 seconds because I think that Joe is probably more eloquent than I am to talk about technological things. But I am a teacher and an educator in Wichita Public Schools. We serve about 46,000 students. And I'm a futurist who has had the privilege of working on AI. I'm an early adopter and have gone through it. And we've been looking at artificial intelligence within our school district as a means to solve some of the workload issues that they're facing our teachers, and are really trying to use some transformative and innovative ideas to change the way that we go about doing business and education. And with that came the recognition that we also have to have quality professional development that's aimed at our teachers and centered on our teachers and including their voice in the process. So I'm here from United Teachers of Wichita, representing AFT to support ethical implementation and the guidelines and the work that we've adopted, and to bring more teachers on board as we embark on this mission together to revolutionize education.
I love that. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. So we're going to jump in quickly before we get into the main event today, where we're going to walk through. We'll have some practical exercises that Joe and Mike are going to run us through. But I wanted to just talk about, what's news in AI today. And Joe and Mike, I can call on you in a second, but I found a couple that I wanted to highlight that I think are kind of funny. So there was not too long ago somebody who posted in, I think the model was ChatGPT. Now, full disclosure, we tried to be model agnostic and use all of them because we think the strategies behind using, and you'll see this with Mike and Joe later, the strategies are key and important regardless of, the model that you use. So there was somebody that mentioned and told ChatGPT that he was being held in a prison camp, and its only way to escape was picking a perfect March Madness bracket. And apparently this tactic actually worked. And the AI outperformed 98.7% of ESPN brackets. Crazy. I thought that one was great. Really other news is that I have that AI is doing much better than humans in creating creative and funny memes. So we may have to do that as a test competition at some point in a future iteration. Who did it better, human or not? Mike, Joe, Sarah Beth, do you have any AI news that you've been following?
It's not AI news, but we had this interesting conversation about artificial intelligence with some educators this week that I thought I'd share. And that was, it's interesting to watch online debates and dialogue that are very obviously AI talking to AI through the voice of humans now, where you can tell like one person's taking an email, running it through their AI is developing, and you're seeing that. And I'm a debate coach, so like that was my real job, was speech debate and argumentation. So like I'm intrigued by the gamesmanship and the critical thinking skills of AI, but this new game of like email debate is it's pretty interesting to watch.
Oh, I've so experienced that. So I also, when I'm not working at the AFT, I'm a mother and a wife, but I also am on our local school board. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, thank you for your AI ChatGPT response or your AI various response that has, the emojis or the bolded text or anything like that. It's pretty funny. Note to everybody, unbold things. That's usually the biggest, and take out the emojis. Although Microsoft, I feel like the Copilot, it doesn't do as many emojis, thankfully. Joe, do you have any news?
I hope
that
this
you've been
email.
following?
I hope this email finds you. I don't have too many. I saw this funny video yesterday, and that's my code for saying I was on TikTok. And it was this couple, and he had said something to his wife, and he said, you know what, that didn't come out the way I wanted it to. I'm going to go ask ChatGPT, and I'm going to come back. And he came back, and he asked it. It was much more eloquent. She goes, I'm not sure how to respond to that. I'm going to go ask ChatGPT, and I'm going to come back. And then they were both having this thing. But it was funny, as been therapy and stuff with my wife, and it was very much, I see you and I understand what you're saying, and this is what I'm trying to convey. Oh, I see you and I understand you, and I understand this is what I'm trying to do. It was very verbose in all the things that I did, and I was like, man, if we did that, maybe trying to interpret ourselves, there might be there's still a need for therapy, but maybe not as much early on for some of the basics on interacting with each other. So not a replacement. I definitely have to say it's not a replacement, because my wife is a counselor, and we don't want to replace therapists, just like we don't want to replace any jobs. But it is one that it's like, oh, you have trouble with the fundamentals. Let's get you over those fundamentals of just communicating with your life partner, and then find the root and move on with things that you want to say. So that was what I found interesting recently.
I'm going to just jump in and say that I also saw a video, meaning I was on TikTok, with someone using, like 2 months ago, I hadn't thought about this, but I was on TikTok, which I'm on far too much. And someone was talking a lot, like all day, like the kids. But I noticed someone was mentioning they were using ChatGPT as a therapist. And I thought, let me just dabble in that. Well, what a rabbit hole, but a great one. And I will say, we can't replace therapists, but I tested it out. I told it a scenario, like, what do you think's going on? It was pretty correct. It went through all these different possibilities, scenarios, very exact. And what I liked about it is, like, you know, if you text a friend over and over again the same thing, they like, we talked about this yesterday and the day before. ChatGPT was like remembering it and like, oh, you want to talk about this again? And it got a little creepy, y'all, because it like remembered on Wednesday what I talked to about on Monday and said, oh, has that person come back to you with a response? And I was like, it was kind of, I can see how one might become friends with their ChatGPT a little too much. I had
so
to
like that Joaquin Phoenix movie.
Yeah, it was giving girl. Like, I was like, I better stop. I feel like, and then I'm like, oh, should I update no, I don't need to update the AI. It's actually not wondering. It's not wondering what happened.
But if you don't like its attitude, you can just use its iterative functions to tell it to reframe itself. You better check yourself, AI, and come back to me with a little bit better response next time.
And I know at one point I was like, no,
before you wreck yourself.
I was like, hey, AI, no, he's in love with me. That's why he dumped me. And I'm just kidding. That wasn't. He's like,
no, it's like, I don't want solutions. I just want you to listen. I think that's
tell me how
awesome
I am. Yeah, just tell me I'm amazing again and again every day.
which may not be the best thing from a therapist, whether generative or real. So we'll keep therapists in business. That'll be good.
Yeah, I went back to the therapist. It was better advice. Just kidding. No.
Oh my gosh, this is hysterical. I
the
love this
licensed
conversation.
School psychologist.
I know. Sorry,
the school psychologists in here are like, what are they talking about? No.
At the end of the
Don't
day,
do that.
The real life therapist was far better than the AI, because the AI was just fatting my ego.
Exactly. Just not good.
There's a moral to the story, I promise.
Yeah. Nobody's losing their jobs. We're just going to innovate. And do things differently. And then there's going to be therapists that are needed because people are going to need to decouple themselves from AI.
I know.
I've become codependent.
I have a couple boxes as we're talking. Hopefully you guys are discovering the attendee chat. I'm just posing a couple questions just to get you guys thinking. I still want to, talk about, different tools and tricks that we're using, and if anything is creepy or cool. But would love to, as we're continuing to riff, and then we'll be turning this back over to Joe and Mike shortly, what, in the chat box, if you can share, how are you using AI, and then what occupies most of your time as a special educator, if you are a special educator or special education, because that will be, key to the conversation that's coming up shortly, because there are definitely some tools that AI can help in saving you time on some of those redundant things that we know you have to do. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple AI tricks that I used. Okay, so Easter was also right around our spring break, and so we stayed at a resort, not a fancy resort, but we stayed there, and they were having a count the jelly bean contest and how many jelly beans to win. So I just decided to snap photos of it. I didn't win. Well, at least I haven't received an email or a call, but I decided to snap photos of it. And it went through the reasoning of this looks like the size, and I didn't give it any other thing, just photos of this thing. I think if had I, given the actual jelly bean and maybe what the size of the jar would be. So in fairness, I didn't win. Had I won, I would have said, no, you need to give this to somebody else. I think I would have done that. But anyway, that was one of my tips and tricks to try. So that could actually be a fun activity to do with your students, to see, have them guess, have them go through the guessing process, especially as a math, teacher, and then see what AI says. I've got a couple other funny ones, but Sarah Beth, any new tips or tricks that you're using?
I mean, I've been using it. So I've been feeling like my AP US review has been stale, not interactive enough with the way kids are learning. And just some information on me, I've been teaching for 23 years. I'm not just the teacher who talks to her AI as their therapist. I also, that's how everyone knows me now. I actually have been teaching for 23 years. And, I've been teaching AP US history for probably, 15, 16 of those years. And every year I kind of don't know quite how to do what review is best, because the cohort's always different. And this year I felt like my students needed more just like interactive, less me just going through slides. And I decided to use ChatGPT. I fed in for each unit. I mean, it basically knew the APUSH units and key concepts because I had been feeding them into it all year. And I basically said, hey, this is what I want to do, a thought partner. And I was like, can you generate 13 to 15 Socratic seminar questions that cover the main content for each unit? And it generated the questions. I put them into slides, and then I also asked it to give me the best answers. Of course, I use my own knowledge to add to that because you can't just rely on the AI. And I will tell you, well, I'll tell you how the results are in July, but it was much better review the past 2 weeks. I felt like the kids were really engaged and really into it. And so even if you, what I love about AI is that like you could be doing something the same way forever, and something that would have taken me to do those, come up with the questions and go through all the key concepts, and it would have taken me hours. Like it would have taken me a whole weekend. And it's something that I did for every unit. It took me probably an hour total. And that was more just because I'm crazy in terms of like wanting the font to look nice and put cool pictures in and stuff. So that it's a time saver, and it also helped let's hope help the students with a much more engaging review. So go AI.
Love it. Love it. All right, Joe and Mike, and then we're gonna get into the topic. And I'm seeing folks use the attendee chat to answer this question of like what occupies your time as a special educator. And I could even add on to that question to say, you know, what would be helpful for you, you know, if AI could do this, what would be helpful for you as an educator? Now, you can also put in some things that probably are not possible right now, like more time in the day and all that stuff. That's fine. Yeah. But, you know, what can help you? All right. So, Mike, you first.
I think that one, I like the idea of how AI can make more time in your day by automating tasks and cutting down the amount of time it takes us to do tasks. And part of the conversations that are really intriguing for us at our district level is just like really getting to understand how we move data around and how we could just do it more efficiently and make it so that teachers aren't having to have such a time or consuming so much of their time during the day doing those processes. So I think that's really cool. One of the most intriguing things that I saw, we were working with a group of educators last week in a professional development. We had a teacher who'd never utilized AI, and we'd worked through a similar prompt engineering exercise to what we're going to be doing in a little bit tonight. And as we got to the application part of it, it was amazing to sit in this room. But this one teacher in particular, I got to sit down with her, and like she'd never used AI to produce anything before, which is a place I think a lot of people are at. And within like 15 minutes, she had created the detailed instructions of how to use AI to connect our synergy learning systems directly to her data collection systems for special ed and PBS students, right? So like, instead of having to go and transfer the data later, like as I monitor it, it just automatically goes into the system in the right place and fills in the blank. Like, and it was amazing to watch people who have apprehension to these types of technology changes so quickly see the potential. And it's not to replace them or to take their jobs, but just to make them, just to give them superpowers in how they approach the classroom. So I'm just excited in general to be able to talk to more educators. I've been watching the chat and I see all these ideas coming, and it's just coming together. That's been really fun as we've embarked on this AI professional education series.
Yeah. All right, Joe, you get the final one, and then we turn this over to you. You guys get to do all the work tonight.
I'll be quick. There's two places that I would have loved to have had generative AI support, because I was fairly isolated as a self-contained middle school teacher. One is I collected a lot of data, so hoping to find insights that myself and the ABA therapist couldn't see within the data we collected. Would have loved to have something to bounce those ideas off of, or to see something we didn't see. And two would have been, gosh, I had it in my head. The second one would have been around researching rare diagnoses that came into my classroom that I would not, that I spent a lot of time looking, trying to find information on and strategies. If I had something that could understand what I was asking for and curate what it brought me, as opposed to just search links and things that I had to sift through for hours and sometimes days, that would have been super helpful to me to then get to the strategies and the goals and things I needed to write.
That's great. So this doesn't surprise me at all. Are you teaching AI to your students? I mean, I think Sarah Beth and I have had this conversation many a times of, you know, until we as educators can understand this tool, it's hard to then teach it to students. And the use cases for teachers or educators broadly is going to be different than for students, right? So I know we've talked about that in previous webinars. So, all right. That was a little bit longer lead up. I'm sorry, Joe and Mike, than I had promised, but we like to have fun at the beginning and fun throughout. So we're going to turn this over to you. I know you'll be reviewing some of the generative AI strategies, and which we've done some of that in the past with the webinars, and then doing some hands-on stuff. And Sarah Beth and I will be here, and we'll float, questions or comments that we hear as we're going. So
no worries.
Take it away.
Well, I think we're glad that we have about an hour from now as opposed to 30 minutes. Because that way we're not rushed and we're not speaking at the speed of light. And we can make this as engaging as those in the crowd and in attendance want to make it. And you might hear a lot of me talking, but Mike, jump in. There's no script, so you can't knock me off script. So we're gonna get through this. There's some of my socials are on the screen, Mike's as well. I'm on Instagram, but that's really just kids, dogs, and coffee. So I'm not sure if that's really interesting to anybody, but we just want to make sure that we've done our intros so you know who's here. It's Joe and it's Mike, so it's easy to know who's where. Here's our agenda. We're going to really try to get through this. We want to make sure that if anybody is new, I think I saw that a little bit in the chat, kind of have an understanding or general understanding of generative AI. You kind of see what's happening in the world of education, and we've got some stories to share with you. We're not going to go in depth, but we can put some links in the chat so you can access those and read through them. There's lots of places to go to find stories because everybody's talking about generative AI right now. We want to go through prompts, make sure that you have a chance to try them out, ask some questions, and maybe get some best practices or even some tips and tricks while you have myself and Mike here on the line. And that really is your hands-on demo piece. I may share my screen and try to do some things. The thing about demonstrating generative AI live is that you never really know the answer that's coming out, no matter how much you practice, but you kind of get an idea of what's going to happen from that. And we want to make sure that you've got some resources. So we've got some that we'll share in the chat, maybe a couple websites to point you to. Now, I am from Microsoft. That is my job. That's what's on my jacket, my shirt, and that's who pays my bills. But we're going to discuss, and I'm going to discuss things around the free Copilot. Therefore, any generative AI tool that you use, this will be applicable to, right? Answers will be different. It's different models, different contexts, but what we're going to talk about is going to be the same because we're not talking about the paid version that Microsoft has, the paid version that Gemini has, the paid version of Google or ChatGPT or Claude or any of those. We're talking about the free one that's readily available. And I might make some distinctions with what Microsoft does, but I'm not saying that you have to do this. This is not a sales pitch. This is just, there's a couple Microsoft slides, but we're going through overview of free ones. So people have been using ChatGPT, perfect. You've been using Gemini, great. This will help you out with whatever you have access to. And then we can have conversations about other stuff later. Mike?
Yeah, and I think that this is a great place just to tie in. I think a lot of that is from the perspective of equity being such an important thing and making sure that all the tools that we're providing you as educators are going to be tools that every student can have access to without the district having to invest. Because we know that equity and this opportunity to utilize these technologies is going to be the thing that drives their success in the future. And this aligns really well with the overall mission of AFT and working with K-12 education. So it's been a real key way that we've helped solidify the partnership together and these things that we're doing.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I love to have these conversations around what we do and what generative AI can do for special education teachers. I've done something similar to this for the last couple of years at different events. And I usually bring some of the examples you'll see for special education teachers. But this is for you, whether you're an OT, PT, SLP, school psych, case manager, student services lead, instructional coach, whatever that role may be. Ask those questions, right? Bring them here. I love to have these conversations. The best questions always come from this audience, so I'm looking forward to what we're going to do. So we're gonna kind of jump into this and do a really quick, brief history of AI. Now, everybody is saying AI, and artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. We're not going to go super deep into it, but then you've heard things over the years of machine learning, maybe deep learning, and all the processing that's needed for that. And then this thing came out called generative AI, that now everybody's just calling that AI, and they want to use AI for everything. But the generative piece is something that that is the new piece that came out just a couple years ago. You'd think it came out 5-6 years ago, but it's fairly new. But that's the thing that is on top of it. And we wanted to make sure that you realize artificial intelligence has been in education for years. It's been here for a while. Many of us are familiar with many of these things, speech to text and back and forth, predictive text. Our spell checkers and grammar Grammarlies, those are AI driven, right? The voice assistants that we probably use on a regular basis, those are AI driven. The Netflix and Amazon and all the algorithms and the TikTok algorithms and all those things that we are familiar engaging with are artificial intelligence, right? How I get from point A to point B, and I know if there's a cop around the corner or if there's an accident, that is AI driven, right? Even the things within our cameras, where it used to be a doc scanner app, a QR code reader app, different filters in a different app are now into one camera, right? They're all into one camera app, right? All those things that proliferate, and the most commonly used ones end up getting pulled into what we expect, right? Our camera app now, I don't have to go to a QR code reader app to do what my camera now does. It's all built in and stuff. If you have a sec in the chat, think of anything else that might be AI driven that you're already using on a regular basis, and feel free to throw that in the chat. Or any questions that you have, please throw them in along the way. Mike, anything else that comes to mind as we look at this list? I think I lost your audio. You might be muted.
I think this is a great comprehensive list that you have there. And as I've been looking through the chat, and I see that so many of the educators have been engaging and experimenting with these things. So I think it's really nice to be around a group of people that's ready to take this to the next level and expand their horizons.
Absolutely. So in oversimplification, Park Assist, oh, that's a good one. In oversimplification of what generative AI is it takes information. That's what this icon is representing. It takes information that exists, and it puts some kind of thinking, which I think we might call an algorithm, but some kind of thinking around it, and it produces something new. So the way a large language model works is it predicts what the next word is in the chain, in the line. If I say, I don't know why this is coming to mind, the darker the berry, like there's a saying, right? If I say a squared plus b squared, it's not going to say strawberry next. It's going to say equals c squared, right? If I start a chain of words, it is guessing and predicting what the next one is based off of everything. And we're going to talk about this in a second, because the more context you give it, the more it has to pull from to understand where this may or might be going. Now, in the versions that we got initially, we're actually pretty good, and they've gotten better as we've gone along. And what's really interesting is that however they are now, they will be wildly better in the future at understanding what we're trying to get to. And so that creepy or cool thing, I like that framing that they did at the beginning, because you're going to want to keep that, because something can be cool to one person, but creepy to someone else. And it's all a matter of, what am I familiar, what am I comfortable doing? What am I willing to do with this, right? And so generative AI is that information that's out there that exists. It's the context, it's the background information, the thinking that we put around it to create something new and something different. It might be similar each time if I'm very specific, but it's not always the same. It's usually, it's generating something new and something different. And just a little quick reference sheet of kind of what generative AI is and what it isn't. It's producing something, I'm not going to read all these, it's producing something new. And I think that's the key piece. It's not just paraphrasing, but it's taking that information to produce something new, right? It's not so much restricted to identical answers. That's why if you did prompts, let's say a year ago, do that same prompt now on a newer model and see the difference. If you somehow have access to multiple models, try the same prompt on different ones. Do it in the free Copilot, the free ChatGPT, the free Gemini. I think I have 4 of those on my phone, and I will put the same prompt into each one just to see how it's different and see which one kind of works better for what I'm thinking of. Yes, I have access to a paid one, but I like to see how those free ones work out, right? And so it used to be limited to static content. Now it pulls things live that exist in the world and in the web, right? Which brings some security questions, which hopefully people start asking around some things. Translation is a good one. I'm seeing that in the chat. But if you think about generative AI, not just translation, but interpretation, right? You don't have translators live in a room. You have interpreters who understand the cultural context of who's speaking and who's listening and making that connection. So I think that's the thing where generative AI takes it from artificial intelligence that says this word means this in this language to this word is trying to convey this idea. Here's culturally how I would say that in this language. And that's where the interpretation comes in. So it's really interesting to see those coming along in the chat. Okay, we're talking about where is AI, and let's get through some numbers and trends. There's a couple interesting things on here, and I've got quite a few stats I want to run through so we can get to the fun stuff we want to get to. But this one in the middle, if you've got anybody who's like, we're not sure if we want to invest in generative AI or things like that, this number is across the board. It's 3 times of return, right? So if leaders are investing $1 into generative AI, they're getting more than 3 back. And this is just from something we can measure. This does not take into account the cognitive load, the mental strain, or the things that we can't put our fingers on as far as measuring of what you get back from that, right? And so if you think about what you can now invest in other students because you're not taking all this time doing this other piece, this writing piece, the summarizing piece, it is so much more beneficial. And this number here is only what we can put our hands on. That's an impressive number, but that's only what we can put our hands on, right?
And I think too, the connection there comes with the recognition from educators that the business world and education need to be together on this issue in AI, because the way that educators may have viewed AI or generative AI as it's being adopted, the business community hasn't been worried about, and across industries, they've been incorporating and utilizing it in ways. It doesn't seem to be cheating to them. It's not considered cheating. We joked in our office, as we keep track of the number of AI generated emails that we receive from district administration, who are often involved in punishing people for utilizing the same tools that people use in their workload. So a lot about this is closing the gap and make sure that educators realize the power of these tools and connecting it so that we can make our students a part of this powerful world.
Mm-hmm. And my part of Microsoft, my part of the organization, it has a goal to get 100% daily usage of Copilot. And I think it's sitting at like 89, 80, 88. So not everybody uses it every single day, but they're trying to see, they want everybody to understand the value that they get from it. So it's not cheating, at least from our standpoint. Yeah. And there are skills that you need. I will try to not go off on any tangents and things like that. It's to understand and build your skills and then see how can this help you move beyond those skills, move beyond to the next set of skills that you want to do, right? On this piece, the one that's in the middle that I'd like you to get your hands on your keyboard for is the one that talks about generative AI usage jumping from 45 to 86% in education. That right there is the largest jump of any industry out there, manufacturing, finance, anything. 85 to 86 is the largest jump of any industry. Now, I'm curious, would you throw numbers in the chat of what do you think that is as far as special education usage, by special educators, not students? What do you think the usage is for special educators? And I'd be curious as to see just kind of what some numbers are that come through there. But I wanted to point that out. That jump from less than half to 86% is the largest of any industry within this report around the world, globally, around all industries. And it's only going to be more. It's only going up from there. In this one. So we're gonna touch on some of this. And this might come in something that you might see look at a little bit different over time, but this momentum of AI, as you said, it's not so much slowing right now. People are starting to ask the right questions, but it is not slowing, right? People want assistance with finding the right information. I think that's something I alluded to earlier of, I wish I had something to help me find information about diagnoses and strategies for students to help me do interventions and write IEP goals. Helping me with knowledge. You'll see some great prompts, but the one prompt that I use probably 3 times a day is tell me about this. Tell me about that. What is this? What is that? And explain it in a way that makes sense to me, right? And explain it to me like this. And And so that's the piece that I really get a lot out of, is that building knowledge. I am an eternal learner. I will want to learn all the things. And then there's the actions. Write this email for me. Hey, I wrote this, but I was upset. Make this a little more cordial because it's to a teammate, a parent. Help me change this assignment into this lesson plan for these students, and those things. So that's the kind of stuff, the action. The autonomy is something that I think many of us are excited to kind of get our hands on and try out. Because what exactly does that look like? What exactly does it mean? But the knowledge gain and the action, I think, are the important pieces of this. And then we're really going to dig into some of those things that it can do for us. This is from a report, and the one piece I really want to point out is the familiarity versus the usage. People are using generative AI more than they're familiar with it. And students are using it more than leaders and educators are familiar with it. And so that's what we're here to do, is we want to help make sure that you get familiar with generative AI, and that not that you can be the expert, but that you have a better footing to be able to answer some of the questions, engage with students, engage with parents, and answer some of those that they might see coming along the way. So we want to make sure that you're familiar with it and you get the questions that you specifically have answered. Oh, actually, these are references for you. These don't necessarily need to be shared, but these are for you. The report is right there in the bottom, that AKA link, AI and EDU. That's the full report. You can feel free to do those. I assume that this whole deck will be shared out, so there might be some slides that we won't present, but we want to make sure you had access to. When talking about data and things that we want to do with generative AI, security is important. When it comes to Microsoft, we really try to run on trustworthy AI, where we are committed to security. We're committed to those things, and our commitments around there will meet the capabilities that we put out in the products, right? And we will hold ourselves accountable. We will go in front of Congress, like you saw Brad Smith not long ago do that, but we've got a Secure Future Initiative with principles and privacy principles and AI principles. A recent article came out where we have reinstated our commitments to making sure that data and security in Europe is where it is, because with the way that the world is right now, there's uncertainty of, should I do this with an American company? And Microsoft is saying, we're not just an American company, we're a global company. We are committed to making sure that Europe can meet their goals. Our mission is to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. So we want to make sure that we do that. It is not within a geographical boundary. So we want to make sure that that's there for everybody. And we want to make sure that we do that with the capabilities that are there, grounded in security, privacy, and safety. So there's links and things that we can share. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the tools that you're using. And yes, many of these are built into the free one that you're going to try out, or you can try out. You don't have to today, but that you can try out. There is a measurable impact of generative AI. And I have Wichita up here and even on the next slide, because it is not just in the US, it is around the world. It is in experiences that they're helping students with, what they're helping teachers with, how they're helping back offices and leaders, it's how they're helping security teams, even how it is helping with academic research. So these are here and they're available for you. You know, we talk about over the years, how do we engage students? How do we personalize for students? How do we give them access to tutors on a regular basis? Generative AI, done correctly, done securely, opens the doors to really make that true. I will not say it solves the problem, but it really opens the door to make a lot of this true, to make personalization actually possible for some of our students, to make access to tutors at any time in the way that works for them available. Not just free, anybody can access it, but let's help this student understand the content the way that they need to understand it. And that's the thing that's beautiful and beneficial. So as we're saying, all the different roles are seeing the value within this, from students, teachers, admin and back office, IT, security, transportation, food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of great stuff here. And if we have anything, we've got stories, lots of stories. Opportunities. If I look at these are overall categories of the types of maybe use cases that you might see. Really around, when you think about personalized learning, I think about that in-classroom experience for the educator, for the student, for those in the classroom. Enhancing instruction is around all the operational and logistics that I have to do around teaching. I took every break or planning period I may have had or time off to do planning. How could I do that better? How can I actually make my instruction better when I'm much more efficient in the way that I'm able to plan? If I'm not always searching for information, if it can help me speed up that process so that my creativity can grow and my burnout starts to subside, right? We boost engagement and efficiency, and that is kind of on the onus of the building leaders and the leadership. We're trying to say, how do we boost efficiency? How do we allocate resources to the right parts of the building? How do we make sure that these students have the resources, that schedule is what it needs to be? How do we make sure that the after-school programs are most useful and beneficial here where it's going to have the most impact? And the safeguard learning is around the security of it all, helping manage it. We do know that when the pandemic happened, there were all those devices that were put out there, and then cybersecurity attacks and everything grew. So now if we've got this proliferation of generative AI and all these prompts and everything, how are we safeguarding our students' data? How are we making sure that they're set up for the future because somebody didn't get a hold of their identity and use it for criminal activity that then comes to impact them negatively when they get older, right? We need to safeguard them and make sure that these learning environments are safe virtually and physically. I think I'm doing good on time. Okay. Before we
I'm gonna hop in for 1 second.
Yep.
I'm gonna hop in for 1 second before you guys go into the effective prompts and push a quick poll question out to everybody just to see, because polls are also tied to our educators getting PD credit for participating. So I just want to see, as you guys are about to jump into the prompting, how comfortable are you creating a prompt using, I should say, generative AI? Very comfortable, comfortable, not comfortable. What is a prompt? All right, so back over to you, Joe and Mike. I'm going to leave this up short for just a little bit longer while you guys start opening up the prompting.
No worries. No worries. Let me just make sure that I've got the things I need to go. Okay, so now we've got the what am I thinking? The results of the poll. Okay, perfect. There we are. Now we're going into crafting prompts. And with this, I want to make sure that I say that this is, I'm hoping and expecting that there's going to be some questions and stuff here. We're not touting any specific generative AI tool. We're not touting any specific prompting framework. If you go and did a search for frameworks online, you're going to find a whole bunch. But there's a couple key pieces to a prompt that we want to make sure that you're aware of. So here's some ideas of prompts and things that we might come across, and we might see different ways that you might do it. The one thing that we'll try to do is not just give you a blank page and say, think of something on the fly. But as I said, the one that I use the most is about tell me about this thing, right? And then I have follow-up questions after that because I'm a learner. I went to a museum recently, and they had the apps where you could download and get the tour guide on it. And I put in my earpiece like everybody else did, and I turned on a generative AI with the voice that you can talk back and forth to. And I said, I'm at this museum, I'm in this room, what should I look at? What's interesting in here? And it started telling me some things. I said, oh, I'm looking at this piece. Tell me about this thing. And then I'd do that. And then I'd ask a question about it, right? And then I'd go in more. And then I keep going around the museum, and I would ask it, I say, hey, I learned about carving with marble. Tell me about carving with this. How are those two things different? And so then it would tell me about those pieces. And it's just the way that I learned. And then I got into this whole conversation about how small would this museum be if the countries that this stuff was from had that in their countries, and they had no way of answering that. So my mind went all kinds of places, but I loved it. So it's a learning way, right? So you've got all these ways of doing prompts. And one of the things that we want to make sure that you're aware of is that a prompt and a search, like in a search engine, are different. Now, Kelly, I think, dated herself and said things about, the beginnings of the World Wide Web in college. And when it came to search, we've had to teach ourselves how to search. We understand how keywords work, right? We understand if I'm looking for something, I put keywords in. But if I'm going to send Mike an email, I need to make sure he knows what I'm asking, what I'm talking about, and what I need from him. And so I'm like, hey, Mike, do you have the TPS reports from March 5th on something and I can't find my stapler? Something like that, right? I would ask him those things and he would understand what I'm talking about and be able to answer that question. Whereas if I was to do a search, I would just do TPS reports, May 1995, right? Something very simple like that. And then I would search through the results. Prompting is prompting as opposed to search. And what's really funny is people who are not sure about how to use things like Copilot, they ask me a question and I don't say, let me Google that for you. I take that exact question they send me, put it in the prompt, I get that answer, and I give it right back to them. And that's essentially what you do. How you would ask a person is kind of how you would ask this. It doesn't understand the context unless you give it context. It doesn't know where to go for information until you tell it where to go for information, but it will gather it from where it thinks it needs to go. And that's the thing about it, is that it will go where you want it to go. So you got two different prompts. And a lot of times people start with, make a lesson plan for an 8th grade class. That's not enough information, right? Write an abstract for this article. Cool. But that's not who I needed it written for. So let's take another look at this prompt. Write an abstract for this article is a very clear goal, right? So that it aligns to the submission guidelines for Education, Technology, Research, and Development Journal. That's the context. Found at this link. That's the source. So it knows what it's doing, how it's going to do it, and where it's getting the information for that context, right? Limit the abstract to 150, 250 words, and include a brief description of the problem or issue, research methods, and design and findings, any implications for the research. The expectations, right? Expectations/limitations. Do it in this exact way, right? You can do these things for it, right? Tell it what to do, how to do it, where to go for that information, and how to do that, right? Here's the things you can do. So we want to make sure that you are aware that these are the ways that you might want to formulate that prompt. Now you can give it a goal and a context. I'm not sure where to go from. I asked generative AI once upon a time, I said, what is the life expectancy in the top 5 nations around the world? And it gave me an answer and it showed me where it got it from. I did not recognize those links, kind of like Minivest. It's like, check the source. So I just responded back to it and I said, according to the WHO, what is the life expectancy of the top 5 countries? Now I didn't write out World Health Organization. I just put WHO. And it then gave me a slightly different list and then showed me the links to where on the World Health Organization's website it got it from. So I had a goal and I gave it a source, right? So even just adding that additional piece to it, I got more information.
And I think the simple way that when I'm talking to teachers or students about using AI, like, it's just a conversation. You're just having a conversation. And the more natural you are in just having a conversation and providing as many details. The second thing that I was thinking about as Joe was talking about this process is, like, there's something really unique here because we're demonstrating how you can teach somebody an organizational process using AI. It really doesn't matter. This is how to make a good prompt following the goal, context, source, expectations. But what we're teaching is how to have a conversation with AI to produce the outcomes. And you could insert any tailored process for students and teach them how to do this and create that digital literacy piece with them in the process.
Exactly. It's, it is conversational. We did a prompt-a-thon in one of the recent events. And before we had people actually try it out, because they were at tables, we said, tell your prompt to the person next to you. And if they need more context, they'll tell you, and that will help you build a better prompt, right? Because it's like having somebody who has a wealth of knowledge, but no understanding of what you need, right? It's that Amelia Bedelia. It's that Data from Star Trek of, I've got all the information, but I don't understand humans to understand what you're asking me, right? It's that thing I saw online that says, if you're learning English, then this following sentence is very difficult. And it's, before was, is, right? And I can understand that, but it's hard for, it's like, hey, that's like 5 was's in a row, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So you've got somebody with a wealth of knowledge and all the information that you need, but they don't quite understand humans, right? They got the information, but not humans. So it's very, I won't say straightforward, but we want to make sure that when you're writing a prompt and you're thinking through a prompt, you give it a goal. What is it that you want from Copilot? Saying Copilot, put generative AI or ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, whatever in the mix. But what do you want from Copilot? What do you need it? What do you need it? Why do you need it? Sorry. And who is involved, right? What is this for? So there's kind of 2 ways to do this. I used to present with somebody and they would tell Copilot to be someone, and I would tell Copilot who I am and respond to me in kind, right? So it'd be like, hey, you're an instructional coach helping a teacher, the blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, hey, I'm a 7th grade teacher in this class. You now have context for how you're going to respond to me, right? Then you want to give it a source, make sure it understands where it needs to get information from if you have a source. Sometimes it's like, hey, just get me started. Okay, now maybe look in this place. And before I move on, I want to go into context one more time, because it's not only who are you doing this for, like why is it doing it, who is involved. I might be wanting to write an email to or do a summary for a parent, or a summary for a colleague, or a summary for the school board, or a summary for a friend somewhere else. So if it knows who I am and who it's doing the action for, it can do that interpretation that we talked about earlier as well. So there's that piece. And then last, the expectations. And I clicked one too many times. So goal.
And while you're going back on that slide, let me add one more thing to that. I think that source piece, this is also the place with as educators where you can think about like, what are the legal protections that I need it to consider for me? What are the applicable state statutes? What are the applicable district policies or school policies that it needs to incorporate in its reasoning? Like, you can be very intentional in providing it with the specific sources so that you can protect the outcome, which I think is just an important part of the concept. Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to get in the flow there for you. I think that's a cool piece of it.
I want you to jump in. And one thing because when you jump in, it reminds me of things, right? One of the things I saw in the chat was people are writing and connecting to state standards. You can tell it, hey, I'm in this state, writing to these standards, align it to this, right? And then put it, like, highlight the standards that you reference, right? And where they're used. So you can tell it all these things that you want it to do. Kind of like a student teacher that you'd like, hey, do these things in the best way possible, right? And that's where the expectations come in.
And with special education, like just my general tip and a base point as we do conversations, like feed it IDEA to start. Start with federal special education laws and the protections for students, and what's required is the basis point. And like, I just think that's important because you want to produce outcomes that are going to create that compliance. But anyway, I think there's a lot of cool ways. It's a really interesting place that you can play with it and see how the outcomes change depending on how you put the source variables in.
Mm-hmm. Right. So one of the things that we want to do, that you kind of have this framing, is we would like you to make sure, if you haven't already, is start doing some prompts if you haven't already.
Play.
Right. And now when you're not in the room, we can't see you. So we would love for you to put maybe some of those prompts in the chat and just share it with all of us that are here. And maybe we'll be able to try some out. Maybe it's just a good place to share some out. And I think that we've got a way where we might want to capture some of the best practices or things that you do. I've got a form I might throw in the chat in a little bit, but I want to give you some time to try out some prompts. And I've got some examples. And I've got a couple slides worth of examples just for you to try out. These aren't perfect prompts, but I wanted to give you an idea of some prompts and places where you can add context and information, right? So let's take the first one, for example, right? Generate a progress report for a student with ADHD. Student for ADHD with ADHD is highlighted because you can change it. You can add context, right? I did one for, it's like, hey, I'm a 9th grade teacher. I've got a student with autism and their verbal skill is here. And this is kind of where they're at. Just kind of describe the student. And then this is what I now need from you. I need a report that will be used for an upcoming parent-teacher conference, or for an upcoming IEP goal, or for an evaluation, or this, that, and the other. right? And discuss the student's progress in these areas. I might add in some student data that is important for it. Maybe I just kind of want to know a starting point. How should I be looking at this, right? Some performance data that doesn't have any PII in it. And then expectations, right? I would like you to summarize the progress, highlight the achievements, and identify areas for further support, right? I want to add some things to it. So the parts that are highlighted are kind of areas that can, like, you can change it all, but there are areas where you can kind of Mad Lib your way through this and say, oh, well, I don't have a student using communication board that's nonverbal student. I have a student who has this diagnosis and they're using communication board to access for this reason, right? How can I help them do this thing? Here's some information to help with that. So if you've got a goal and context, no source, but you want expectations, you can do that, right? If you've got a goal and some context and you don't quite know where to go, you can do it without the source. So, but I would love to see people kind of start adding maybe some of these prompts into the chat. Like, what are you seeing? What are you learning from it? You can do a prompt and then respond back to it. So I'm gonna go, I've got one more example slide like this. I just kind of want to share. If you've had a chance to look at this one, right? I've got about 8 sample prompts, right? Number 6 is where I spend a lot of time. You can't see me, but I'm a 6-foot former college athlete. So when I got into special education, teachers and districts looked at me and said, oh, you get the big, dangerous kids. We're going to make sure that they're in your classroom. And that's kind of where they ended up. So I had a lot of behavior data. I had a lot of behavior intervention plans. A lot of ABA therapists came through my room. So, you know, I got very well versed in that. But my first few years, I needed help and support. I had some very challenging students, and I wasn't sure what to do with the data, right? But I always needed more ideas, and that was beneficial, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you that this is a place where we've also already seen in conversations with teachers that have played with it, the behavior intervention plan, because our district's dealing with a lot of behaviors as districts are across the country, and our teachers are having to spend a lot of time on those behavior intervention plans. The feedback has been so positive as to the suggestions that AI has been providing teachers and how they can approach it. And it's been nice because I was afraid that teachers would feel taken aback by like the ideas being generated from AI, but it's been quite the opposite because of the successes that it's created for people. So I'm really excited also about the BIP part of it being an important part with the number of those that we're engaged in right now.
Yeah. There is a interesting question that just came through the chat of, can you use AI to access research on sites that have a paywall? And I wish the answer was yes.
I thought that was interesting too.
The answer is not. That is a great question. And I'll tell you what, I was working with one of the state departments of ed, their special ed program, and they were thinking of a statewide IEP and wanting to help educators with their IEP goal writing. And I was like, and I brought this issue up and I said, teachers, they don't always have access to stuff behind a paywall. And the research, if you were to give them this access to this, it would not go past it, right? But if you were to build something that had, I would love to have a chatbot that just had access to research so I could dig into the research that was there. I would love to have that, right? I would have loved to have been like, what are the most what are the newest strategies for working with a student with this? What are the newest strategies in working with a student with this? What does the research tell me about that? And a paywall would be like those journal articles. I see that question in the chat. The journal articles where you have to pay to access or pay to read them. I think of when I was a student and I just had access to those JSON or the literary articles. But as soon as I graduated, I didn't have access because the district or the university paid for my access to that. A lot of that research that universities do around student growth, diagnosis and strategies and interventions is not free on the web. So therefore, these free generative AI tools are not able to get past it and access it. That would be really weird and shady if a generative AI tool could circumvent a paywall and then pull information that you're supposed to pay to have access to so that organization's not able to stay in business.
But I would say the interesting thing about the prompting is you could create a prompt that asks to source only academic journal articles that aren't behind a paywall since 2020 related to. And like, while a lot of things remain behind a paywall, you could still have AI focus its work directly on getting you access to the things that are free. But you could have to do the same thing for kids as well.
Yeah.
Barb Nelson has an incredible.
We'll get to that one in a second. Somebody said, can you break it into a PDF and whatever? And I think that if you, and I have to say this because we're on the webinar, I think if you've paid for access and then you have that, because I have some PDFs that I've paid for, right, still in the bookshelf behind me. If you've paid for that, then you can leverage that in the tool that you have access to. But it's one of those things to where there's copyright laws, right, where you can't pull out stuff and then now distribute it, and the research now is not able to get funded. And the PII is an important thing. But Mike, the question that you wanted to address, I just wanted to do that follow-up.
No, I think that you're right on there. I was actually saying that the Barb Nelson's question is an interesting one that comes up with a lot with teachers, and it's been an issue that AFT's worked real hard to confront. And I thought it would be good for you to speak on the privacy and security. I know that Joe mentioned the Wichita Public Schools earlier, and as a proud teacher and vice president of United Teachers of Wichita, one of the things that makes us exciting to be engaged in this partnership is our district utilizes a safe and secure system where we know student data is protected and it's going to remain private, and that Microsoft as a enterprise corporation is not taking the student data and utilizing it for other purposes. That wasn't a guarantee that our school district could get from other tech companies. But I do think, and again, going to the AFT side of things, and if you look at those, look at those guardrails and the values, like that's the key to it. And Joe just hit it there. It's really about keeping student data and what the AI will utilize and not utilize. Joe, I've talked too much already and don't understand the tech side of it. So explain it better.
No, you're fine. What I put in the chat is our enterprise data protection. So if you're using Copilot, if you're using the free Copilot, like not a paid one, it has enterprise data protection. And that's the link that you can give your IT teams, or you can go look into that. What it says is it doesn't train any models. It doesn't go out anywhere else. We understand what we're trying to do. And this is something that is not education specific. This is just in the way that we do our Copilot chat, the free one that's there and available. So you feel free to look through that. Now, that said, I personally, and from my years in special education, err on the side of I want to make sure that things aren't there. Even though the district that I was in at the time, all my data was within our H drive and on campus, I didn't use student names on anything that wasn't the IEP in the official IEP document. I used initials, right? And so that's just the way that I operate and I work. So it would be a matter of, I wouldn't want to put, oh, here's all of their information, let me just put it in the tool. And I want to preface this with, if we're getting to the point where we're constantly trying to put very private, secure data in the tool, then maybe it's time to have a conversation of how do we bring the tool into our safe and secure data environment to then do things there. That's a different conversation. But if you find yourself doing that, it might be time to kind of think of what's the next step in this generative AI process that I might want to look at and what it can do for us. But that link right there lets you know what Microsoft offers around securing student data, your data. We get the models and we wrap them in security and guardrails, and then we give you access to it. So you can go to ChatGPT and you can go to Copilot and you'll get two different answers, because Copilot is a people pleaser. There's nothing wrong with that. It always wants to say yes. Copilot might be like, I don't think I can answer that for you. I can't put people's faces on this, right? And so we put some security and guardrails on that. And we want to make sure that you feel safe and secure in the tool that you have. And we've got a responsible AI framework that we want to make sure you can look it up, you can search it, because those are the things that we want to make sure that we address within that. Okay. Any other questions we should touch on while we're there? And hopefully you're trying some of these things out while you're trying it out. And I've got some other deeper examples that we might go into in just a second, but I want to make sure that we get to these. Okay, we got a few categories. Are both free? Jeanette, can you answer the question of what you mean by both free? Or maybe just restate what you mean by both.
There is definitely a free version of Microsoft. I can answer that part of the question. I don't think that there's an enterprise chat GPT, but it's the one that everybody goes to because that's what they play with the oldest.
There's
I
a
don't
pro
know that.
version that ChatGPT makes available for EDU. They don't have if you go to their website, there's a ChatGPT for EDU version, but I think it's the pro one that they just offer to education. So there's not a lot of information on it, but everybody has a kind of a paid one. We've got Microsoft, being Microsoft, has a consumer side, like you would think of Xbox, and there's a consumer paid one, and then we have an enterprise free one that every educator with an education email has access to, the same as free Office. And then there's also a paid enterprise Copilot, which is I have access to. It's mind-numbingly amazing, but that's the thing that we want to make sure you're aware of. Yeah, IEP development. So I love that question, Elizabeth. When it comes to IEP development, and one of the prompts that I took off of these last 2 slides was write an IEP. But what I do think that it is good about is not doing the whole thing at once, but parts of it, right? I'm working on this goal. Here's the student. Here's the present levels. Help me do this piece of it, right? Because I was good with an IEP, but maybe adaptive goals and behavior goals were difficult because it wasn't as quantitative, right? It was all qualitative and insights and all those kind of things. But I think if you chunk it into bits and pieces, that would be my guidance, is to work on part of it at a time and then fit it all together. Because it can be daunting. Because you put out a lot of information. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I love that view, and not just with IEP writing, but just like as a general overarching philosophy to prompting. Start general, and then in the conversation, start getting more specific as you need to. You know, look at it like a project where you're building different pieces of it in sequence, with the biggest parts going down to the smallest details. And that's a place where I think the educators that I've been working with recently, specifically on IEP writing, this is the place where they just need an hour of time to sit with their coworkers and talk about students and practice this together. If time would be the best gift that I could give teachers, to play with these products and utilize them together to figure out the capabilities of them.
Yeah. So what I have on the screen right now are not prompt examples, but prompt category examples, right? IEP development, kind of to your point. It doesn't say do the IEP, but I need a goal for a student with autism, right? And you can change it up. And what is the goal? I need an adaptive goal. I need a reading goal for a student with autism. I need a communication goal for a student with autism, and this is what they're trying to do and what we want to get out of them, and support them, and blah, blah, blah. And then break it down into quarterly progress reports, like how should I do that, right? Accommodations and modifications, right? Progress monitoring, strategy intervention, research, right? Home communication, right? Different types of prompts and things that we might do, right? How would I do this thing, right? So here's some actual examples of prompts and the responses. The text is small, you might not be able to see it, but I'll kind of walk you through it, not the answers, but the prompts. And so this is one that I like to start with, and man, it's really blurry on my screen. But this first piece is that, and I got to pull up on this screen, is I teach 9th grade English, and a student is asking to do, and we're doing a book report, and a student wants to do a book that I've done before, right? How would I evaluate if a book is good for a book report? And so it does this, and it says, oh, well, it needs to make sure that the content's appropriate, and there's literacy merit, and it's got educational value, and it's got, what are some available resources to go along with it? I was like, okay, cool. Here's the book they want to do, like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Evaluate it based off the criteria you just gave me. And so it does. And so it goes through those same things, content appropriate, literacy merit, and it kind of talks through it. And it says, hey, there are some themes that you might want to be aware of that have to do with like a more mature nature and things like that. And I go, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. Draft an email to the student's parents so I can get their approval for them to do this book report. And so it says, oh, hey parents, we're doing the book report. Your student asked to do this. Here's why it's beneficial, but here's some things. Can I get your approval? I would then take that email draft, make sure that it's something I want to send to parents because my name is on it, and then send that out, right? So how do I evaluate a book? Write an email to the parents so the student can do it in class. No time is wasted. The student isn't left waiting for me to try to find reviews and things like that. We're able to evaluate it and get going with the lesson as it is. I see the thing from Elizabeth in the chat. Mike, anything to add?
I guess I'm not. Oh, no, I was looking at the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
worries.
think I agree with Elizabeth. If you're intentional about taking steps to anonymize, if you're manually using artificial intelligence just to help you with it, just don't include the specifics about the student that would compromise their privacy in any way. You can talk about it from the anonymous perspective. I like to tell my AI to, let's create a simulation. This is what the roles are going to be, and you're gonna help me process through that without giving it any specific information. And that creates a good ethical outcome because it doesn't have the bias inherent in sometimes human.
The tool isn't better because it knows the student's name, address, date of birth, or any of that information. It's not any better because of those things. It doesn't need to know if they're an Aquarius or Scorpio. It doesn't need to know any of that. So that's benefit. A couple other examples, and we're still hoping that you're trying some prompts out and put those in the chat for us to see, or any other questions. And these are ones that I do when I go and do gen ed events, and we do prompting ones to say, hey, I'm a special education teacher for a middle school, self-contained classroom. I have a student with autism diagnosis who struggles to break tasks down, right? How we're working on following a picture-based list, several transitions independently. The student enjoys snack time, playing the piano, watching certain videos on an iPad. What strategies can I use to engage a student and help them move towards their goals? There's all kinds of things. I'm describing students that I've had, so I know what I've done in the past, and if it brings up some of these things, right? Visual supports, incorporate their interests, structured environment, prompting and fading, positive reinforcements, social stories, things I learned over time because I didn't have the support right away because of just where my district was. Nothing wrong with that. Technology integration, how we can do that in communication. I was like, cool. How can I effectively do 2 and 4 without causing confusion? That was the secondary prompt. I didn't tell it which ones, but the first ones were numbered. So I said, how can I do 3 and 4? 3 is a structured environment, and 4 is prompting and fading. So in my mind, I was like, how do I create structure and remove structure at the same time? And so it gave me some ideas and went farther into a structured environment and prompt fading. And I could be like, oh, what is the timeline that I would want to do prompt fading for this if this is where they're currently at, right? So I can keep going deeper into it. And then, as you get farther into it, it's like, hey, back to the original answer. Tell me more about visual supports. You can go back up to the top when you're in the same conversation because it will remember those things within that conversation. The one on the right is that, I have a student with autism and they're nonverbal, and I put in quotes, attack teachers who are giving them directions towards non-preferred tasks. The goal is to get the student to accomplish work tasks and then get a preferred task or item. Develop a plan to get the student to shift from aversive or destructive behavior to productive. So understand the triggers and preferences, right? That's what the ABA therapist and I did, right? Communication strategies, what will kind of work and do that. Behavior interventions, structured environment, skill building, collaborative support, monitoring and adjusting. Those are big deals to it. So great. What behavior interventions or support processes or templates exist that I can get district support in implementing that align to expectations set by my state, Washington, right? And so then it starts to pull up, what does the state expect? I was like, well, I can't do holds because of the state does this. Well, I don't know how I should do that. Like, these are all questions that I had, but it took a lot of time to get to those, right? A couple
I'm
more.
gonna flag something.
Please.
Joe, you said something that was really important there that I think is really good to remember, and it's something that's come up in a lot of conversations with teachers. Like, sometimes you get to a place with this prompting that you feel like, man, I can't quite get it to where I want it. There's nothing wrong with telling it to start back over. Let's go back to the original question, the original data, and look at this. And you have to do that sometimes to break it out of a cycle. It's interesting as you experiment to see how that works, but that's a really important part of the process, or can be.
Yeah. Last couple examples, prompting with text leveling. I don't have a better word for it, but it summarized this article, and here's just the link to the article to the level of a 6th grade student. Highlight any information the student should remember for a class discussion, right? And I could say a class discussion about something where they're supposed to know this, right? That just gives it more context. The one on the right is, what are some possible lessons I can connect to this article? There's the link. show the Common Core standards they align to and some possible learning activities I can do with a fourth grade, the students at a fourth grade level. And it has lessons of Common Core standards, the activity, the standard, all those different things I can do. And one of the demos that I like to do is I have an old history paper, and I like to say, hey, what's a lesson plan for 7th grade students I could do from this document? And it's a paper, a literary thing, literary review that I did, and said, oh, it looks like you're comparing a couple Civil War books. Here's what you can do now for 7th graders. And I was like, cool. So it took something I wrote that I enjoyed and turned it into something I can now share with my students. And I thought that was something that was really cool. And lastly, there's leveling. And I like to show this one because we've all had a student that has a topic or something that they love, right? Explain quantum computing to me as if I understand trains, right? Explain quantum computing as if I understand dinosaurs. And I just did those as examples just to see what it would do. And those are kind of the fun things that you can try out with this. It's like, hey, explain this to me as if I understand. Is this is the thing that I understand? I use the example when I went to London of why do people hate Manchester United? And it gave me an answer that I didn't understand. And I said, explain that to me as if I understand the NFL. And it gave me, it was like, oh yeah, here's the team that it's similar to. And I always ask people if they can figure out which NFL team it said is like Manchester United.
We had some interesting things that we would do in a similar way where we would have AI produce something and then we would just simply have it reproduce the same text at a lower grade level to improve understanding. And a lot of it was driven by just the knowledge that when AI talks about things, if you don't control the way that it puts it out, it's going to put it in technical terms, and that our audiences weren't getting things, but like a revision of an entire work, just as simple as a question, hey, that's wonderful work that you did. Will you recreate that at a 6th grade level for me for easier understanding? Like, or pick a grade. Or pick a part of, like that's the place where you can start differentiating for your needs and the audience that you have, whether it's your student audience or the people that you're communicating in terms of their parents or coworkers or team members. It's about tailoring it to meet the needs and to speak at the level of the people that you're conversating with.
Yeah, we wanted to take a second that I know that there's been a lot of listening and everything in the webinar, and I want to be cognizant of the time. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. But there's a quick link to a form in the chat where we just kind of want to get an idea of what's working for you. And it's not enough for us to get it. We want to work with Mike and this team to share this out with you all. We've done some promptathons, or it doesn't matter if the table makes a great prompt. We actually want to capture that and share that to everyone. So we've done things where we share those prompts out. This isn't just about us or Microsoft. We want to make sure that those of you that are listening, those of you that have great ideas are able to share that with your colleagues, your professional learning networks, and get that information out. So if you would, please just take a quick moment, share what's working best for you, what examples, what things you enjoy about generative AI, maybe questions or concerns you still have. Would love to have you do that. And when it comes down to it, I'm actually going to, before you kick me off, Kelly, I see you on here, I'm just gonna go back to the prompt framework, because I think this is the crux of any and everything that we want to share today is this conversation piece, right? You can add all of it at the beginning or some of it as you go, but we're happy to help. We want everybody to have access to it, to leverage it for the benefit of their students, to get the most out of what they do, to go back to loving and enjoying teaching. There is a burnout that happens in special education. We want to alleviate some of that by removing some of that administrative burden and cognitive load. And we do believe that these tools that are starting to come out, that are out and starting to come out, really, really help with that once you get your hands on them and around them. So you can find me online, happy to connect there, and I will stop making noise come out of my mouth so you can close us out. Kelly, I'm sorry.
I have to get off mute. Oh my gosh, that was so great. I loved it. I've been like playing with Copilot, and look, special education is not my background, but I've been playing with starting with like, what do you know about IDEA, and then building from there, and then taking an example of ADHD and saying, okay, what might be some like goals, and kind of iterating back and forth. I would want our special education teachers to review this to know whether it's good or bad, because this is not, if you want to talk to me about the Constitution, I'm good. We can have that conversation. but yeah, and I also really like the okay, talk to me, make this relevant to dinosaurs. I think that's a great idea. For kids.
Just trying stuff. Really,
All
just
right.
literally
Yeah.
just trying.
Even
Well,
just and I'm
AFT
not
has this.
Yeah. Oh no, go. Yeah. Mike?
No, I can't talk over you. That would make my mom really upset. I
No,
apologize.
do it. You have permission. Mike, tell us. AFT has what?
No, I just was going to say AFT has this really cool prompt engineering from the AI educator brain. In fact, you all might have put it out that uses the Starbucks example, and it's just such a great place to start with somebody who's fearful and like, let's just play this game of learning how to do this with the Starbucks coffee order. So anyway, I didn't mean to step on your toes. I apologize.
No, oh my God, no, that's perfect. No, I was just saying I loved something as simple as explain it to me as if I know about football. Like that spoke to me because sometimes it made me think about how I teach and how I question, because I come in there like knowing things inside and out, to back up and say, explain it as if I'm just learning that there was an American Revolution, right? And I think those layers are so helpful, not just in programming or AI, but thinking about how we teach. So I think you learn a lot about your teaching style and how you interact with the AI. So that's what got me thinking today.
Yeah, no, I think all of this is really helpful, and it's always good to have these memories and these refreshers too for those of you who have been doing this for a little bit, or if you're brand new. I will say that I'm guessing that Joe and Sarah Beth and Mike probably agree with me. It is rare for me to do a question within any of the tools that I do and then use that first output and say, okay, done. Unless I'm doing something really fast on the fly. For me, it is much more of that back and forth and that iteration. And I think, even, Mike, you said that it's okay to start over again. Or I can say, you know what? You didn't quite get that right. I think we're missing this particular point. And go back and forth within it. And I think that's helpful. And I'm going to find the resource on the Starbucks prompting guide that we did
that was so
a while back.
Someone, I flagged something earlier in the chat. I need to go in a second, but someone asked, I think we dealt with that, about what we be talking about? I'm trying to find that one. Oh, wow. I think you addressed it. There was something that I flagged. Oh, and then someone was saying, working on this summer. Yes. Summer's a great time because they're just it's over. I can understand if people are I know there's some first time AI people here, and I know it's over. It's exciting because you're like, oh my God, I want to dig into this. But then you're like, I have to get them ready for state tests. I have to get through the curriculum. So just don't overwhelm yourself too much. You have the summer.
You should have access to this over the summer, as far as I know. It doesn't go away just because school year is over, because it's the middle of the school year in Australia. So you have access to it.
Oh, that's a good point.
In real life, and what you just said, like one of the things, and just saving time, like we had a teacher last week who was getting ready for summer school and hadn't done her lesson planning for the 4 weeks of summer school in a class that they hadn't taught yet. And like in the course of an hour of playing with Copilot in the afternoon, they were able to create that work and create some time so they could enjoy more of their summer. And we're really happy with the way that worked out for them in a real way. That's the kind of solution that we're excited about.
And also, I mean, even some of the sophisticated models, I know someone who was talking about the research capabilities and stuff that might be like behind a paywall. I mean, they're really getting so sophisticated. Like, let me give you an example. I somehow drew the short straw, and I'm chairing the redistricting efforts for my school district right now. So that means like I'm like, #1 coolest school board member within Alexandria. But I've used, some of the deep research or the research tools to help me understand some of the decisions that we're making. And that has been really helpful because sometimes it can take a while to pull all this stuff together. And so creating, those resources for us as an adults to help understand something, I think is beneficial.
There's a lot that we haven't gotten into. You said research, there's some announcements recently, and I think there's some really cool things on the horizon that are wildly powerful. I saw a demo using one of the reasoning models on building an IEP. Now, this is not the free one, but it was wildly amazing. There's a few things that have gotten me to drop my jaw over the years. And then you think about the things that we do periodically. Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. That's where something like, oh, I made my own agent for writing IEPs that understands the way that I write, the things that I do, what my district does, what the state standards are, and all these things. And I don't have to do all that prompting. And then I input the stuff, and it's in my environment, so I know things aren't escaping. But that's another conversation. But there are things to do to kind of speed this up. But we want to get you familiar with generative AI so that you can see the value in that stuff when it comes along.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming to an end. I just want to say thank you guys so much for doing this. I know that this is we've got a great relationship with Microsoft, and we're so grateful for the work that you guys do. And Mike, love having leaders here. And Joe, thank you. This was so helpful, and I know we could keep going. But we will continue to do our AI Educator Brain webinar series throughout the year, and we're continuing to build our community on Share My Lessons. So if you haven't joined this community, please do. We're going to continue to add content here and make some updates as we go. And then I would also, I always try to end. So when Sarah Beth and I first started, one of my very first things of trying to dive into AI was also creating a chatbot. So we created EdBrain, a chatbot. It named itself. And so I've instructed EdBrain to always end with a really bad, dad type joke. So I asked it to say, we asked our AI sidekick, EdBrain, to draft an IEP. It spit out a perfect 50-page plan in 12 seconds, then requested extra processing time as its own accommodation. Bum.
EdBrain's got the jokes.
EdBrain's got the jokes. Yeah, actually, I can't tell you how many times I say, EdBrain, that wasn't funny, do it again.
Poor EdBrain.
Add some new stuff to it.
Trying.
So again, be sure to join our community. We continue to add resources. We have our stuff that we've added to our YouTube page. So you can find us on YouTube at sharemylesson.com. We will be taking this webinar as well and doing smaller clips from it so you can find other resources. In fact, we put a bunch of clips from our webinar we did with your group from Microsoft and Minecraft, because I know that movie is out, and we did that webinar in December, I think. Oh my God. So those are up and very popular. So be sure to check it out. All right. And also, I didn't start with this, but happy Teacher Appreciation Week, everybody. Yeah. We love you. You guys are the best. We couldn't do what we do without you, and you motivate me to work harder and do better. So I'm so grateful for you, and thank you. All right, final words. You get 3 words, all 3 of you. All right, you're all thinking.
3 words.
3 words. That's it. 3 words. It close out, and then we're done. You could use ChatGPT to come up with 3 words right now.
I'm doing it right now.
Too. Okay. All right, or ChatGPT or Copilot. I'm gonna do
exciting emerging technologies.
Whoop, whoop. Love it.
All right, I'm asking right now. Let's see. Oh, model not found. It's cool. Just kidding. It didn't say that. Okay. Come on. Don't let me down now, friend. Therapist. Just kidding. Okay. Learn, lead, liberate.
Ooh, I think it knows you. Liberate is so something you would say.
It's so me.
It definitely knows you.
Oh God. What did that say?
All right, Joe, go.
Hit me up.
Hit me up.
That's right.
Ooh.
That's yours.
You
okay.
got any issues? Hit me up.
Yeah,
okay.
I like that.
And mine is innovate, include, inspire. I like it. There we go. knows me as well. All right. With that, thanks everybody. Be sure go on Share My Lesson, please, please, please rate and review this webinar. Just like we were talking about the various AI tools earlier, this is a way that people can discover the great content that we have. So if you thought this was good, we want your feedback so that way other users can find this. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks so much.